night before the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden to become the next 46th President of the United States, which then will follow the swearing in of Kamala Harris, being the first woman of Caribbean, Asian descent to become a woman of color who is holding the second highest seat in the country, which is the vice president. And then other Congress people will be sworn in as well tomorrow, which will change Congress and the House and Senate. While there's a lot of things going on in media, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of division, there's a plenty amount of fear. What are we anticipating for tomorrow in the light of an election being stolen? Look, we all know that there is some level of fraud because human beings are who manage the process, whether it's a mail-in vote, early election, or, handwritten ballot, whatever it is. Humans are interacting in the whole process. So there's always going to be room for inaccuracies. For someone to turn around and take their case to the courts and do all the justifications and not be able to win any of the 60 plus, not provide any tangible proof and evidence besides hearsay, because someone saying that they witnessed something isn't enough information to prove anything beyond the shadow of the doubt when it comes to the letter of the law. There has to be hard, tangible evidence. So are there video recordings of people not certifying someone's signature and so on and so forth? Like, that level of evidence needs to be there at such an unsurmountable amount to quell all of the conspiracy theories, whether they're true or false. They're still theories. They're not based in evidence. Now, yes, there's a whataboutism that people have an argument about. Well, look what happened in 2016. They lit cars on fire, and then what happened last week with the insurrection attempt at the Capitol, and then people play the whataboutism of what happened over the summer with what happened in the summer with people arguing that, well, during Black Lives Matters protests, such and such happened. During Black Lives Matters protests, people were protesting about police brutality and racism. They weren't trying to overthrow a government. It's a very fine difference. There were people who came in and co-opted the movements, and I'm not going to get into that thing. And now here we are at the pinnacle, or at a pinnacle moment, not the pinnacle moment, because we don't know what the future holds. Tomorrow, inauguration. We don't know what could happen. Nothing could happen, and everything goes according smoothly. But worst case scenario could happen. People could try to, do some sort of terrorist activity to some level, to some degree. We don't need that in this country. We've been through the fuck enough. At what point can someone just get their ego? And I'm not talking to just the former, but the to-be former president, but I'm talking about everyone who backed the horse on that vote. At what point can we all, whether it's left or right, when are we going to get to a point where enough is enough? Because what's happening is we're constantly upping the ante, and we're going to get into a darker place. And we're going to slip away into a very dark time for 5 to 10 years if we don't stop now. We know this. We've looked at human history. We've looked at things that happened from World War I that led us into World War II. I mean, you can go back and see how what happens in the way society reacts and starts going into this rabbit hole. We have to sober up, and we have to acknowledge tomorrow that it's time to put the swords away. it's time to start getting to a sense of peace of mind, a sense of compassion. And I'm talking about for both sides and for even the center. Like, we all need to be a lot more understanding and patient with one another. Not escalation. Like, anyone who brings a sense of escalation to an argument isn't there to resolve the problem. Anyone who wants to inflame or instigate is literally seeking to cause a pinnacle moment where it escalates and explodes into something else. Do we really want a revolution? Do we really want a civil war? Think about what that really means for your way of life for the next 10 years. Because once we go in it, it's really hard to stop it until there is complete and total bloodshed. And what's really crazy about human history is that after all bloodshed is always done, we always look back in hindsight with 2020 clear vision and go, oh, there was an opportunity, we could have stopped that. There's an opportunity where this didn't have to happen. There's an opportunity. Oh, if this didn't happen. Oh, if we just paid attention to that. Oh, if we had a heavier heart in that moment. If we had a little bit more compassion in that moment. If we had just a little more empathy in that moment, we wouldn't be here with devastation. We wouldn't have had to go through that. That's where our animalistic nature shows up. That's not human. Being human is not to kill another human being or an animal. Being human is not greed. Being human is not selfish. That's not the definition of humanity. And I know Neil deGrasse Tyson will agree with me as he elaborately explained it in his 3rd season on Cosmos pretty damn well. He's a rock star. That man should be celebrated the same way any athlete or musician is. I mean, when are we going to start celebrating our scientists the way we once did in society and revere them? I mean, we can learn a lot from understanding how insignificant we are in the blip of time itself. Do we really want to be 100 years from now looked upon as World War III happened or the destruction of millions of lives happened? Like, when you stop and sober up in the moment, do you really want to be that person? Now, I'm not saying conform and let your rights go away, but when is enough enough? And when can we get to the accords where we sit down and start writing up new plans? Maybe we need to update our Constitution to encompass all beliefs and encompass all ethnicities. Maybe we need to change the word to all men are created equal and put in some asterisks. I don't know. All I do know is that it's not going to get solved by sitting in vacuums and echo chambers. It will get solved by people sitting down and being willing to write and reform and reinstitute. So I sit with anticipation to what's going on, but also with a lot of excitement, not just dismal feelings that we're going to have a terrible attack tomorrow or some sort of coup is going to happen or who knows what. I sit here in this moment, the night before the inauguration, believing that truth, justice, and humanity will prevail. And at the core of this, people don't really want a fight. People don't really want bloodshed. And I believe that good will prevail in this moment. And I'm not saying that a candidate is good or right. I'm saying that the ideology has to be restored from fighting to coming together. And we have to go through a healing process. You can't just say we're healed and then create unity. There has to be a process of accountability. And one of the biggest wishes that I have is that removing all of the things about Donald Trump is that you were the president. You did it. You did what not Anybody can say they did. You were the 45th president of the United States of America. People are going to look at you in a lot of different ways. But at the end of the day, don't you want sanctity of humanity over beliefs? We can always change the fight into a more workable way as opposed to a complete devastation. Most people in this country don't want a civil war. Most people want to get back to a normal way of life. And the only way to disarm most people who are highly activated right now and on that edge isn't by show of force. Those are deterrents. What it'll come down to is you having a bigger heart and just saying, you know what? Enough's enough. Show up at the inauguration and give the man a handshake. Like, if you really are a patriot, regardless of draining the swamp, regardless of the institutionalized corruption that happens in Washington, D.C. or whatever it is, don't you want to prove that you could fight a battle, but yet also be compassionate and understanding because tomorrow's another day? And not create such panic and fear that you don't even realize that you might be doing? People think kindness is weakness and niceness is weakness. It's not. Kindness is the ability to be able to be nice when you have literally no reason to be nice. You're dealing with hardship, you're dealing with stress, you're dealing with problems, but you're still able to be nice, kind, empathetic, and loving to another person. And I just wish that that could be easily understandable to everybody. But I have hope. I have hope.